Welcome in to the Skol Purple podcast. We are back once again. Tony and Carson here with you on this Saturday afternoon as we record this for the audio listeners. This is when we are live on our YouTube channel. For our audio listeners, we'll be posting this in just a little bit after this has been released. So, good to be with you on this Saturday afternoon. Tony, I thought it was a good idea to hop on since we didn't get a chance to really do a preview for the first preseason game. Not that there's a whole lot to preview in terms of what we knew, what we didn't know ahead of time compared to what we've already known. But, anyways, good to be with you. And we're good to talk. We're glad to talk about the Vikings, even though the preseason game didn't go all that well. But that's why it's called the preseason. Right, Tony? Tony, oh no. Tony's been having some issues over on his end with the internet. So we will try and keep getting him in here as much as possible. But make sure as we get things rolling here, as you get into the stream with us, hopefully, that you put a comment, give us your thoughts on this first preseason game, which, by the way, looked pretty good in the first half. The Vikings were able to move the ball pretty decently on offense, settled for a field goal, got a touchdown pass from Nick Mullins to Muse, to Nick Muse, Nick to Nick. So that was kind of cool. I didn't even know if Nick Muse would be back on the team this year in terms of preseason, obviously, but he was back and he was able to, show that he can make some plays here and there. But Nick Mullins actually looked pretty good. He didn't throw a ton of deep passes. There were about 3 or 4 I can think of off the top of my head where he went pretty deep, but a lot of the rest of them were pretty much within 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, and partly because the pass protection that Nick Mullins got was not very good. The Vikings really struggled in pass protection, especially once Jaren Hall came into the game. But it was quite the rough time for Jaren Hall in his Vikings debut. Both quarterbacks did try and scramble a little bit, but Jaren Hall, the final drive, I think it was, that the Vikings had in the preseason game, Jaren Hall did not at all look to be comfortable because he got sacked 2 times in a row. The Vikings barely were able to move the ball. And then on a 4th down, they couldn't convert. Seattle took over, and that was that. I would say one of the biggest things for me from watching that game is maybe the letdown on the offensive line. Not the starters, obviously, but Ed Ingram. He did have a mess up in pass protection. I think I saw Luke Braun, actually, a guest we've had on the show before. He actually did a little breakdown of that missed block from Ed Ingram and said basically that Ingram was supposed to block this guy, but he must have thought that the center was going to take that guy while Ingram watched for any late blitzes. So that was kind of interesting, and I thought that was just kind of telling of what Ed Ingram maybe still needs to catch up on in terms of this offense. So it'll be interesting to see if Ed Ingram can continue to improve. But really, the entire offensive line, second team not as bad, but the third team offensive line really bad. And I mean, you're not expecting all-star caliber guys out there when you're at your third team, obviously. But I think maybe it does speak to the Vikings' depth on the offensive line a little bit that after the starters are out of the game, it could be kind of tough. They do have better, like I said, better backups, but the third string gets to be a little rough. But again, it's preseason, right? We're just sort of waiting to see who can make the team and who sticks out, who doesn't. Um, like I said, Nick Muse with that touchdown catch. I think he had a couple other receptions as well. And then defensively, Ivan Pace Jr. He has been a beast so far this preseason, and in training camp, things have been all the reports that I've seen on Twitter from beat reporters and such have been speaking very highly of what Ivan Pace has done. And there's even talk amongst some of the reporters, some of the fans, of course, that maybe even Ivan Pace will bump Jordan Hicks for that starting linebacker spot. Maybe not immediately, but in this season. So we'll see if that actually happens or not. But Ivan Pace, man, he looks like he can read an offense and where the ball's going very well for a young player, and it's going to be fun to watch him. We'll see if he can. We'll see if he can do well in coverage. That'll be something that I'll be watching going forward for him and for the linebackers as a whole, because we know how bad the linebackers were in coverage a year ago. Jordan Hicks and Eric Kendricks. And yes, part of it was the defense Donatel ran, but part of it also was the players were not as fast as the Tony Pollards and Saquon Barkleys of the world, which not many linebackers are that fast, but you have to be able to adjust as a linebacker in the NFL. So, but yeah, I thought that was a big sticking point. Greg Joseph, by the way, for you big fans of Greg Joseph, 54-yard field goal that he made. That was pretty impressive. That was fun to see him make that. Made another one in the game as well. But yeah, again, the third team in that third quarter, it kind of seemed, by the way, once that punt was muffed by Thayer Thomas, I believe it was. That was the beginning of the end. I mean, Thomas really just, it was kind of unfortunate. A teammate of his was in his way, so he couldn't actually get to the ball, and Seattle recovered. And it was at that point, really, Seattle took the hold of the momentum, and the Vikings could not get anything going offensively after that. And so, yeah, that's kind of the summary I would give of the game. And now we've got Tony back in here. He's been having some technical problems because why not, right, Tony?
Yeah, Mr. Schubert, give me 1 second. If you can hear me, I can't hear you.
Okay.
So we're just going to make sure we've got us all squared away here.
All right. Well, it's again preseason. I posted a
There we go.
Little statistics, some statistics from the Vikings preseason history the other day on Twitter. Just in case people needed a friendly reminder, because I think there was some people that were pretty upset on Twitter. I'm just like, calm down. It's preseason. So I posted this dating all the way back to 2014. So starting with Mike Zimmer era, the Vikings were 4-0 in each of the first 3 years under Mike Zimmer in the preseason. Vikings went 7-9 in the regular season in 2014 after 4-0 in the preseason. In 2015, they went 11-5 in the regular season. That's pretty good after a 4-0 preseason. But then 2016, 4-0 in the preseason. They started out 5-0 in the 2016 regular season, but then finished 8-8. And then 2-2 only in 2017, but a 13-3 regular season. 2018, 3-1 in the preseason, 8-7-1 in the regular season. That was the first year of Kirk Cousins. 2019, 4-0 in the preseason, 10-6 in the regular season. 2020 COVID. 2021, 0-3 in the preseason, 8-9 in the regular season. And then 2022 with Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings did not win a game with Kevin O'Connell and have not won a game in the preseason with Kevin O'Connell as the head coach yet. 13-4 in the regular season, though, last year. So, again, preseason meaningless in terms of record variance on record into the regular season. As also a Lions fan pointed out, Lions went 4-0 in the preseason when they ended up going 0-16. Their 0-16 regular season. So again, take it with a grain of salt. Yes, there are some things maybe you should be concerned about in terms of the depth on this team, but it's not a big deal. I mean, it's practice pretty much. I mean, they call it preseason for a reason. Tony, any thoughts on that? Those statistics, or any thoughts in general from the game? I've talked a little bit about Jaron Hall, a little bit about Nick Mullins, a little bit about Ivan Pace Jr. as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I mean, the preseason is, from a win-loss perspective, it's meaningless, right? It really does not matter, if you're winning games, losing games. I mean, I think every coach would say they would prefer to win every game, right? And of course that's true. And I know the players feel the same. They're all competitors, they're all athletes. But again, statistically, obviously, it does not really matter that much. And I don't really put too much stock in the win losses either. I mean, it doesn't move the needle for me. Do I appreciate the wins from a fan perspective? Of course. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. The one thing that you and I talked about off air, and I'll just kind of say it here. The one thing that the preseason's really good for, in my opinion, is if a guy is going to excel, generally speaking, they will look better and they will look like they are rather dominant against a second or third string opponent, right? We can't take everything from preseason. You can't make every evaluation. But if a guy looks like he's really struggling against the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, that's pretty alarming. So there were a few things that stood out to me, to touch on the players that you brought up. I thought Ivan Pace looked good. I think, there's still work to be done there, but I like the fact that he didn't seem like a fish out of water, running with the early squad. He didn't show up in a really negative way, a la Troy Dye there. I felt like I was getting like PTSD from that Cowboys game with Tony Pollard on that wheel route. But so I think that there could be some polish there. But again, he didn't stand out where I felt like he was a fish out of water. And that's what you're looking for. Do they look like they're struggling against maybe some inferior competition? I thought Addison looked okay. I'm sure with a Kirk Cousins behind center, he would look even better, right? Because Kirk's going to be able to feed him the ball. Obviously, we'd have a starting O-line. I thought the O-line play was pretty spotty all night. Obviously, it got worse as the night went on. But
Yep.
I mean, it's funny because at halftime, I thought the offensive line play wasn't great, and then it looked really bad in the second half. So then it almost overshadowed the spottiness of the first half, because I just thought it was pretty poor. It went from bad to worse. So I don't feel like Nick Mullins had that much of a clean pocket and a chance to get himself set and run plays. And I certainly didn't think Jaron Hall had the ability for us to really see what he could do when he had some time to go through progressions.
Yeah.
I like to see the athleticism. I know that O'Connell put this out there in the post game. I did like that, when we did see Hall bail out of the pocket, he made good decisions. And, at the end of the day, I'd rather have a guy decide to throw a ball away than try to force a throw or just do something stupid.
Right.
So, taking care of the ball, I mean, that's part of being a quarterback. So, and we're not taking sacks. I'd rather have an incomplete pass than a sack. So, I liked that. I saw some of the accuracy, arm strength that I would hope to see in a young guy. I just hope they flip-flop him this next week. I hope that Hall gets some time running with more of the twos, just to see what we've gotten him. And maybe they'll reserve that for the third preseason game, which wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, overall, preseason game was fun. Obviously, it's just fun to see Vikings back on the field playing football. And maybe this will be a nice little segue, Carson, if you haven't brought it up yet. But the bright spot for me wasn't
Greg
really
Joseph?
a player. Yeah, that bad boy just kind of hooked right in at the last moment. But I'll take it. If it's in, it's in. But the thing that I just had me grinning ear to ear for the first half, especially the first quarter and a half, the defense. Look, I'm not saying they're the next Legion of Boom here. All I'm saying is that you could absolutely tell the ramp up in aggression, the more exotic this defense is going to be, and the fact that we're just not going to be afraid to bring pressure, and that lets guys play free. I really and truly think that Flores is about being aggressive, playing hard, trying to lay some hits on some guys, and being a bit more of a hard nose, defense. And look, for all the things that I felt were shortcomings of Mike Zimmer, that was one thing that he always instilled in the defenses. Maybe not so much towards the end where things got pretty pear-shaped for everybody, but you always knew there was going to be an edge to the defense. And I feel like we got a little bit of that back with Flores and the squad. I think they're going to play with a little bit more of an edge and challenge. They're going to challenge the offense. And that's what I wanted to see. And I felt like I saw it and it made me happy. So, Carson, did you feel the same way?
Yes, I did. I thought that, especially in the first half.
Yeah.
The second half, you could definitely tell it went away a little bit. Especially, there was still a few drives when they were able to get stops, but when Seattle, I kind of felt, Tony, I said this, that the momentum turned when they got that muffed punt.
Yeah.
That's kind of when things went downhill for the Vikings, and Seattle just took hold of the momentum and didn't give it back, took hold of the lead, didn't give it back. So yeah, that was huge in the game. I think not, again, not that, oh, well, they didn't they lost the game, big deal, but Thayer Thomas, right? That was the guy that muffed the punt, but he had a guy in his face and couldn't. It's like, well, what do you do? Like your teammate, it's your teammate. Like if it was one of the other players from the other team, it's like, well, then that's kick catch interference. But
yeah,
then if it's one of your own teammates, it's like, well, tough luck.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
yeah, that was a tough deal. And the funny thing is to see Pete Carroll getting all pissy about them not essentially getting a touchdown off of that. It's like,
Yeah.
this has always
Pete
been the
Carroll doesn't
rule,
know the
Pete.
rules. Yeah, what?
Pete, you're 110 years old. You've gone through 16,000 pallets of double mint gum on the sidelines
That's right.
of the NFL. How do you not know that this has always been a thing? But whatever. I mean, yeah, but I agree. I mean, that was a big momentum changer. And I mean, it's like I hate to go back to the cliche of it's preseason and so whatever, but when you start getting
Right.
into like the 3s and the 4s, you and I were texting during the game. It really is a little bit like, some of these guys aren't really gonna sniff a chance even at making the roster. Forget starting. We've moved on from competing for starting positions. These guys are just trying to have a job in the NFL at this point. So
Right.
yeah, with the drop off in I hate to say talent, but I you know what, I'll say this. Actually, this is something I've thought about for a bit. I think when you get to this level of competition, and you're at this level of your career as an athlete, I actually think it's less about um I think it's less about athletic ability and more about consistency. Every single one of these guys can play. Every single one of these guys was a superstar at their position in college, in high school. So at this point, it really just becomes who can do it every play, every down. It's just
Right.
that's what separates most of these guys. It's this razor thin edge of, can a guy be consistent game in, game out, play in, play out? And I think that's really it. And then obviously there's some ability separation, but at the end of the day, that probably is only talking about the top 10% of players. The rest, it's just more about consistency.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Well, before we transition into Kareem Hunt, I wanted to bring this up to our watchers, those of us that maybe those of you, I should say, maybe that are not on social media, which there may be a few of you.
You never know.
Exactly.
And more power
So,
to you. I hate social media. I mean, I do it, and I
right.
love you all on there, but
That's right. But yes, so we have a position open right now. It's not a paid position, but it is a position that we are looking to bring someone on that would like to, give their opinions on the show. Someone that has maybe some experience with audio, video editing, that type of thing, as you can see here. So make sure if you are interested, know of someone that is interested or could be interested, to send us a message. We haven't gotten back to everybody yet, or in terms of, I think we've responded to everybody, but we haven't met with people or got anything lined up for sure. So we're still kind of trying to feel it out a little bit, see who else we can maybe see is available that would like to before we go fully into making a decision. So if you're interested, send us an email, and that's skolpurplepodcast@gmail.com. You can see there the bottom of the screen, or you can DM us on social media, on Twitter/X, Facebook, Instagram. Tony keeps up with all of that, so he's the man. So send us a message, and he'll get the information to me, and we'll make a decision eventually on who we want to make part of the Skol Purple podcast team here. And yeah, so I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Tony.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say it's unpaid, Carson. I would just say that it's not
That's right.
monetarily. We're not,
That's right.
nobody's getting
Paid
paid.
and
But
experience, as the old timers like to say.
exactly, we pay in smiles and experience and laughs and good times. Vikings wins.
Horns. That's right. Viking horns as well. And yes, that's right. Good times or sorrowful times, depending on how it goes. So, as most of you that are Vikings fans would know, it definitely comes with ups and downs. So,
Oh yeah.
uh, yeah. So if you're interested in that, yeah, send us an email, skullpurplepodcast@gmail.com. I will do my best to even check the spam folder and make sure we had somebody send one to the email that went to spam. So finally got returned a message to them. So anyways, skullpurplepodcast@gmail.com if you're interested in joining us. We talk about the Vikings, and we are always looking to add more content to our channel too. So if we can get someone in here that wants to do some of their own stuff on the channel, on the platform, then we'd be happy to have that as well. So yeah, so moving on, I suppose we're almost 30 minutes in, and you're wondering, well, I thought I saw Kareem Hunt on the little graphic there, the thumbnail, and here we are. We're talking about Kareem Hunt now, and Kareem Hunt visited the Vikings on was it Friday? Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday.
That sounds right. That sounds right.
So Friday afternoon or morning, whenever he visited with the Vikings. Of course, the Vikings still haven't filled the running back role left by Dalvin Cook, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they have to either. I think, Tony, this to me is just kind of a formality to a degree. I'm not saying they won't sign him, but if they do sign him, it's going to be a cheap deal for the Vikings. And it's going to be because they are still unsure about the depth behind Alexander Madison at the running back position. And honestly, Tony, I'm fine. I'm fine with the depth right now. I'm not saying I wouldn't welcome Kareem Hunt in purple, but to me, it's just like, do we really need another running back at this moment? Like, if somebody got hurt, yes, then we could have that conversation. But I think you have Alexander Madison, you got Ty Chandler, you got Dwayne McBride, and we do have Kene Wongwu. I should mention Kene Wongwu is hurt, so maybe that is why they're doing it. Hello. So yes, that is a true point. Before somebody commented it, I was able to decipher that information. So good. But yeah, so I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on Kareem Hunt coming to the Vikings for a visit. Is there any more to this visit other than just a look-see?
I mean, I think it's just going to come down to price. I mean, they're going to kick the tires. I think Kareem Hunt is enough of a talent where you should kick the tires, especially if you think there's a possibility that we could make a deal that fulfills both sides' needs. As you mentioned, if we were to not sign Kareem Hunt, would I be fine with that? Yeah, because I think that Madison, I feel pretty good about him. I thought we saw a good amount of positive plays from Ty Chandler, which I was so happy to see because I thought last year in the preseason and early on in the year, I saw some flashes of like, hey, this guy might have some juice. And so it was nice to see that again this year. Kene, as you mentioned, is injured. And behind Chandler, I felt like there was a pretty significant drop off. So I think the thought is with Hunt is that if they could get him on the cheap, that it wouldn't be a bad ad, given the fact that, if let's say Madison goes down or Chandler goes down, what kind of depth are we looking at? And not to say Wongwu is going to be like out for the year, but with these guys that take a beating in the trenches, it's tough. Those injuries linger, and so we'll kind of see what happens. But I'm fine with him kicking the tires on Kareem Hunt. I don't think he's going to sign here. I will say that. I think he's going to sign elsewhere, only because I think the Vikings are going to offer him lower than what he might get from a more desperate running back room, he might get like a $4 or $5 million deal. I think the Vikings would love to pay Kareem Hunt like $2.5 million. I mean, that's like basically what they're paying Madison.
Right.
Well, maybe.
Yep.
I mean, I think they're paying Madison, what is it, 3-4 million, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's not much.
yeah, so I would say it's gonna be below that range. And I think
And he also visited the Jets and the Saints and maybe another team or two as well.
Colts. Yeah, Colts is another one with Jonathan Taylor maybe holding out.
Right.
And then the Saints, obviously with Kamara going on suspension, I think the Saints make the most amount of sense. I think he's going to sign with the Saints. I don't think Taylor's going to hold out. I think he'll eventually play. And the Jets, I think, are going to sign Dalvin Cook. So,
yeah, they seemed to like him when he came to visit. So, and Dalvin Cook is being a very anti-Viking right now because he says, "I'd love to play with Aaron Rodgers." Pretty much, he didn't say that word for word, but he's like, "Yeah, I'd like to play with Aaron Rodgers." In a not so revealing way, I guess. But yeah. Anyways, or more revealing, I don't know.
well, and I think
yeah.
when it comes to the funny thing is that when it comes to this whole market right now with the running back free agents that are left, Dalvin is going to set the market. So I think that's what's tough too, is until Dalvin signs, then we don't really know what Kareem's worth. And I'm sure that's what these GMs are also thinking. Because if Dalvin signs for like 7 or 8 million, there's no way Kareem should be asking for anywhere near 5 to 6. Right? Because
Right.
I don't think anyone would disagree. Like Dalvin's a better back than Kareem Hunt, and nothing against Kareem Hunt. It's just he's coming off of a down year where all of the situations aligned for him to have a better year this last year, and he didn't.
Yep.
He actually had a down year, so it feels like he's kind of on the downswing, whereas Dalvin's kind of still in his prime. So I don't know.
Yeah. And Tyler Fornes, I thought this was interesting. He wrote an article for Vikings Wire saying that he watched all of 17 of Jaren Hall's dropbacks again, and he believes his struggles were overblown for a few reasons, and he broke those down, grading all 17 of those dropbacks in an article at Vikings Wire. So, and we've already talked about that, Tony. Back to Jaren Hall on just how little time he had to do anything. So I'll be interested to maybe go watch that, watch some of those dropbacks, and kind of get my my thought process on that too. But yeah, it's probably a good article to check out if you're really worried about Jaren Hall after he was under pressure for 50% or more of the snaps, probably.
Yeah, and I'm not. Maybe I'm coming at it from a different angle too, but like I did not come away from that first game thinking like, oh, this guy is like not looking good.
Right.
I mean, I didn't.
CJ Stroud, on the other hand.
Well, yeah, that was a little different. But therein lies, part of it is expectations. Like anybody that's listened to this podcast and heard us through the draft knows that I don't have really high expectations for Jaren Hall. I think Jaren Hall could turn into a good backup. Basically, like I think the ceiling for Jaren Hall, for my opinion, is basically Nick Mullins. I don't think Jaren Hall, in my opinion, is an NFL starting quarterback. I just don't. But So, that doesn't mean he can't be a good, and it doesn't mean he can't be serviceable, but those are my expectations. So I wasn't expecting him to come out, and I wasn't looking at it under the idea like, can this guy be the quarterback of the future for the Vikings? Because I'm not expecting that. I think if you were expecting that, then yeah, I could see how people are like, oh, and to that I would say the same response, which is the offensive line played terribly. So it's just really hard to evaluate a guy where he doesn't have any time to process. He has no time to make any reads or go through progressions. It's impossible. I mean, it doesn't matter who you threw back there. You could have thrown Kirk Cousins behind that O line, and he probably would have looked pretty darn bad because he had no time. I guess it's just that's kind of the thing. I just think sometimes fans, it's a mixture of expectations and also looking at what's within the control of the player. So if you're expecting Jaron Hall to be the next Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, I guess I'd agree with you. I guess he didn't jump off the paper for that, for me. But then the other end of it too is, you got to give a guy time. So it's kind of I would say almost like 70% of my evaluation was this guy has no time to give me an evaluation or, give me anything to evaluate. And then maybe the other 30% was, okay, I mean, there's something there. But again, see, for me, there's something there as a backup. And I did think he accomplished that. So,
well, and let's not underestimate how long it took some of these players last year to learn Kevin O'Connell's system. Like Kirk Cousins, I don't know how many weeks into the season we were, and he was still saying, I still don't know this play very well, or something along those lines. And so, and Jaron Hall's been here for 5 months, not even, so he's still got a lot to learn, not only the playbook, but also the play style and play speed of the NFL compared to college and BYU, because let's be honest, BYU is not the most competitive college football place to play.
This is true.
Yeah. So let's pump the brakes. Like I said, I'm not totally convinced Jaron Hall is going to be the greatest either in terms of future starter, but it's hard to give him really any type of an evaluation after that game.
Oh yeah, I agree 100%. And that's what I mean by the fact that he could still surprise me and be the next great thing. I mean, I don't know.
Let's hope.
It's just my expectations are relatively low. I mean, I should say if it's, can he be the next Hall of Fame quarterback that's a Viking? They're low. Do I think he could be like a solid prospect for us that functions as a backup? Then yeah, I think he could do that. And I hope he proves me wrong.
Yep.
Well, in a good way. I don't want him to prove me wrong in a Kellen Mond kind of way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Tony, I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there really anything else that we need to discuss here at this point? We've talked about the game. We've talked about Ivan Pace. We've talked about Kareem Hunt potentially in purple.
I think the only thing that I would maybe add,
Danielle Hunter, he's back, by the way. Go ahead.
If you haven't noticed yet, Danielle Hunter is back. The only thing that I'll add from the game was it was nice to see Lewis Seen back. Really nice to see him back on the field. The one thing I will say is that he's gonna need to get back into his aggression and what made him a first round pick. Because he's playing very upright right now. And that's what made him get drilled a couple times, get run over, as a few people pointed out, is he's just not lowering the pads. Now, I don't know if that's him bracing for hits because of the injury, which, look, I'm not. I mean, I played football, Carson, but I never had a compound fracture on the field. So I'm not
Right.
going to sit here and try to, say I would or wouldn't do anything. But what I will say is that he looks like he's playing there just were moments where there were some big hit opportunities and he kind of, I don't know, he just played upright. And I don't know if that's just bad technique or if it's him playing cautious, but we got to get that figured out. And I would imagine that's what's keeping him from getting a little time running with the ones, even if it's just, practice and things like that. So, there's that. I thought Mekhi Blackman had a couple of plays where I was like, oh, okay, look at this guy, and I had,
Then he had the penalty.
yeah, the penalty. I mean, the thing is with him too, he's a guy where I expect the aggression. He's a guy that was very aggressive in college. He's just going to have to adjust to the NFL game and learn to use those hands strategically, like all the good corners do, where they can get a little handsy, but they get away with it. This is a certain way to do it. So that's all. But I love the aggression, the play. I mean, I think it's good for this defense. It fits well with Flo and what he's trying to do. So I thought all that was good. And then, yeah, I mean, as far as anything else to mention, obviously we got the next Vikes game, which is going to be Saturday, 7:00. Titans.
Week from today.
Joint practices with the Titans this week, which is always kind of interesting. We'll see if we have any fights that break out. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
And then speaking of that, the only other thing I have to talk about going into this next game, maybe from week 1 of the preseason, if you want to call it that, is the fact that we came out of that game relatively unscathed, Carson. I mean, unless you can think of any, I don't think there were any injuries that were of note. Now, I'm sure in every game there's always injuries, but I don't remember.
There might have been one, but I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. And I don't mean to, it sounds so bad.
Nobody got hurt except that one guy that nobody cares about.
It's an inconsequential player. I know they're all human beings. Don't at me at Carson. But
at the podcast.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, just send it to the podcast. We'll make sure those go into a folder. We always
Tony reads those.
Yeah, I do. I look at them and I eat my feelings. No, but I mean, there weren't any notable injuries to players that I think would be competing for ones and twos. That I guess that's a better way of putting it. And that's huge. I mean, that's massive. Yeah. And I know it's only one game, but every game where we can come out where we don't have any notable injuries or guys getting a little nicked up, because that just, it can alter a season like that. Yeah. And so let's all knock on wood and be happy that we're coming away pretty healthy, and hopefully we do the same on Saturday next week.
There's your knock.
There it is. There it is.
There's your knock on wood. There you go. And that's all you need. All you need is knocks on wood.
That's right.
Forget love. Sorry, the Beatles. Sorry, Beatles.
They don't know anything.
They don't know anything. That's right. That is going to do it, I think. Thank you for listening and watching. We are going to post the audio here in a little bit after we get that posted for our audio listeners. You can also go there too if you'd like. Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Samsung Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast, pretty much. We are there. We are there. Tell Siri or Alexa to play the Skol Purple podcast. That's a thing too. You can do it.
Yeah.
You can do
Fun
it.
fact, if you ask her to do that, she actually just she cusses at you, which is I thought pretty rude of Alexa, in my opinion. But I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
She knows it's your voice, so she's like, Tony, you said something about players, and
That's
not
right.
happy about it.
Yeah,
About
some of that hate
players being
mail.
hurt. Yeah,
Some of that hate mail is just coming straight from Alexa. I think.
that's right. That's
Yeah.
right. All right. Well, thank you again for joining us for this episode. We will be back next week potentially to talk about maybe a little bit of a preview for next week, or we may just wait until after the game. Who knows, Tony? Maybe we will. Maybe we'll do a little post game reaction next week.
It could be
We'll have
fun.
to keep you. We'll have to keep you all updated on that this week, but. We're trying to get back into the swing of things. Takes a little time. We all have things that come up, and so we're trying to get back in the swing of things. And then once the season starts, you're stuck with us. You are stuck with us. So you better just enjoy your time now, and then you're in trouble. Then you're stuck. So stuck for a
That's it.
full season. Stuck until the Vikings hoist that Lombardi Trophy in February.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we're going to be in regular season form here before you know it. No matter what, I hope everybody has a good rest of their weekend. Of course, into next week. Enjoy yourselves. If you're heading out to training camp, good for you. I'm jealous. I really wanted to go this week, but
Yeah,
unfortunately,
me
with
too.
work, it's just not going to work for me. But who knows? Maybe I'll sneak over there on a lunch break or something and hop the fence and get arrested, and then everybody will see me on the news.
That's right. Making news in all the wrong ways possible.
Yeah.
The Skol Purple Podcast.
I'll have Carson's face tattooed on my back, and then I'll just take off my shirt, run on the field. It's all for the
you
clicks.
know. Now
Yeah.
you know who to blame. It's this guy.
Yeah, it's all for the clicks.
Very good. Thank you all for joining us. We will see you next time. Be watching our social media for updates on when we're going to go live again. And Skol, as always.
Skol, baby.